Nimrod, I actually want to begin the conversation by starting with what's your current role and take it from there.
Sure. So thank you, Navi, and thanks everyone for joining us today. Um, so yeah, let's dive right in. The project that we're building is called daily.dev. And it started as a browser extension. Now we're slowly rolling out a web app as well that helps developers from all over the world to stay updated on the latest trends and the latest news in programming and in coding. Um, and this project started as a side project, indeed. Like it didn't start as a startup. We never planned to make it a business. We just started by solving our own team's problems, and from then it evolved and became what it is today. So for those of you who haven't heard about daily.dev or never tried it before, so I can show you a quick demo. What do you think about it, Navi?
Yeah, before we even go into the demo, I'd actually love to maybe understand how you got to the journey of daily.dev and you know, like what was that? You said you were trying to solve your own your own problem. So tell me a little bit about your professional growth and like how you got into, because I know you mentioned that you're not a developer and you've created this fantastic tool for developers. Just wondering like how that merged, how you came to that crossroad.
Sure, of course. So it all started in the previous startup that me and my partners founded. And in one during the lunchtime, we used to run a lot of jokes and talk about a bunch of stuff. And one of the topics that came is that in many cases, developers are building great tools and great software that help nearly everyone but themselves. Like most of the things that are being built are not being built for developers, right? Um, and we're kind of laughing about this topic from different angles. Um, and a couple weeks later, we had another lunch together, and one of the guys said that it's just ridiculous the amount of time it takes him to read news and to read blogs. And essentially nowadays, many developers are also blogging, and there is a lot of content out there. The content can be in the more, let's say, professional magazines, but it's also in the personal blogs and portfolios, and also in the developer blogging platforms like Dev2, Hashnode, HackerNoon, FreeCodeCamp. A lot of those platforms just offer an abundance of content. And what my partner Ido, what he shared with us during this lunchtime, he said that it just takes a ridiculous amount of time to go through everything. Like you need to go site by site, look at the content, read it, and if it's low quality content, then you find yourself just wasting your time. And he was starting to wonder whether there is a much more efficient way. And the other guys in the R&D team also agreed that it's really a time consuming. And our designer, his name is Tzachi, he came up and said, again, like going back to the fact that developers are never building things for themselves. He said, we have a tool for us for designers, which is great. It's called Musli, and you should take a look. And immediately, like it struck us that we can build something. We can build some kind of news aggregator. Just put everything in one place. And this is how it started. So the problem was that we had a team of developers that were constant learners. They always cared about staying up to date. But the problem is that they had to spend a lot of time and effort in doing so. So we simply found a much easier way. And from there, it just started growing organically. And I might be able to share a little bit more.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's really interesting that you said developers don't necessarily build tools for themselves. I think that resonates, especially I think a lot of our community members are early stage developers. So right now they're still very much focused on building tools for whether it's freelance projects or open source initiatives or trying to land, either a product gig or on the service side. So the focus still is very much on the other rather than, hey, what are some tools that help me advance the things that I'm doing? So I think that's fantastic. I have so many questions for you, but guys, please feel free to drop your questions. This is an AMA. So please feel free to drop your questions in the chat as the conversation flows. All right, Nimrod, I'm looking forward to seeing that tool. Let's get started.
All right, cool. So let me just quickly share my screen. So yeah, ta-da, that's it. So daily.dev is essentially a feed of nearly 400 content sources. So if you go here on the right side of the bar, you can see all the content sources that we collect articles from. It's really a wide range. It can be overwhelming. It covers any topic in programming to date. And then there is the main feed where we present the most popular content in every given moment. And if you go ahead and try and install it on your browser, you'll be able to stay updated at any given moment. And the way the articles are ranked, I think this is, or the more broader question, how this thing works is obviously most of the magic happens in the back end. So the way it works, we automatically collect from RSS feeds all the articles into our servers. And then the next big challenge is, how do we rank the articles? Like, how do we surface the best content to the top, which is a constant challenge. It's a continuous challenge. It's not something like a one-off thing that you do and then you stop. Like, we always try to improve our algorithms and our content quality tools. But essentially, the way it works today is that we check what is the interest rate that the community shows. So we have around 80 to 85,000 active users. So we constantly see, what people are reading, where do they place their upvotes, what are they commenting on, and so on and so forth. And that way we can rank the content. And another important factor is the freshness of the content. So obviously we want to surface, the most interesting and new stuff. So the recency of the articles are also very important. And we offer a bunch of other stuff. We have like reading challenges to help you create a habit. And we have like the most upvoted feed where you can just go ahead and look at the most popular articles from the past 7 days. And you can search here for content, which is pretty different from, let's say, Google search. Because here you only search programming content. It's a very, very specific type of content. So you're able to really dig into very, very narrow topics and find some of the best content out there, which is not ranked by Google algorithms that have certain logic here. The logic is much more simple, which is really helpful in many, many cases.
Gotcha.
So yeah, that's a platform where we show, the trends. That, for example, this article has been read by 66 developers in the last hour. So it just, give you some sense of what's trending, what's upcoming. And yeah, it's quite simple.
So with all the content that's online, there's so many places, right? There's you just showed a massive aggregated list of where you guys are pulling all this information from. I have a couple of questions about what kind of data you guys are storing. If I was to install this extension on my browser, what's the security implications of the data that is going into daily.dev? Let's start with that. And then I have a couple of other questions about like if you find something useful, or maybe I found a snippet or something useful on like this list, is there a way that I can save that and put it under my own list or bookmark it? How do I reference back to some of these articles?
Wow, those are two very, very good questions. I'm going to start with the second one simply because it's much easier.
Okay.
So we do have a bookmark option. So on each card, once you hover it, you can just bookmark, and then you can go ahead to your bookmark list and just see whatever you bookmarked. So let's say I'm going to bookmark this article. Then I'm going to go to my bookmarks and it's going to be here. So you're able to save content for later. And about the privacy question, it's a very, very important question. So daily.dev is a sign up free platform. So once you download it, you don't have to identify yourself. And the only times that we actually collect your personal data is once you sign up, if you authenticate using Google or GitHub. So we get your basic contact info, like your name or your email, etc. But besides that, I'll tell you what we're not doing. Definitely, like we're not doing any kind of browsing history or any kind of intrusive tracking, collecting data in a very ruthless way, and even not in a ruthless way. At the end of the day, we serve developers. This audience is among the smartest audiences and the most thoughtful audiences online. You can never play with them. You don't want to play with them. You don't want to fool them because it's just going to backfire. So things here are pretty straightforward, and everything is also open source, so you can go ahead and check it yourself. And another thing worth mentioning is that there is another, like when you install the extension, there are two permissions that we ask for. One is if you want to sign up. So we ask the permission to do the sign up process, but you don't have to. Once you install, you just don't have to sign up. And the second thing is if you want to see your recent visited sites, so we ask for that permission as well, but we don't store the data. So everything is just kept locally. We never get it back to our servers. So it's just for your convenience, because once you replace the new tab, you lose the shortcuts. So if you want to get your shortcuts, it's just going to be here. But again, it's just saved locally, and we don't get that data. But we do get that some people are concerned about browser extensions, and it's fine. It started again as a side project, and we did it for ourselves. We didn't plan for it to be a tool for massive amounts of people. So we also recently launched, it's still in beta, but if you go and click app.daily.dev, so you'll be able to access the exact same product as a website, not as a browser extension. And again, you don't have to sign up, you don't have to do anything. We still don't have all the features on the web app, but we're constantly improving it. So you can just go ahead and use the web app if you don't like, having browser extensions installed.
Interesting. Yeah, I'll come back to some of my questions. TJ has an interesting question. What were some of the issues you faced in getting users to use the platform when you first launched?
What were some of the issues? So there's a big difference in getting your first 100 users to getting your first 1,000 users and getting your first 100,000 users. It's usually totally different effort and totally different challenges. And luckily for us, we didn't have to really solve massive amounts of challenges because the product mostly grew organically. So at first we just used it for our own team. And so our own people were just, coming up with features and developing it for themselves. So, at the end of the day, they just solved their own problems. And we uploaded the extension. At first, it was only for Google Chrome. So we uploaded to the market, to the store, and people started just downloading and using it and recommending it to their friends. So in that sense, like the first 1,000 users was mostly word of mouth because the product was good or good enough at the time. And then there was some random guy that we don't know. I think he was from the UK who posted our product on Product Hunt. If you don't know the site, Product Hunt is a place where people upload like new products, and there's like a daily contest. And the product that gets the most upvotes or engagement or reviews, whatever, gets to rank the highest for that day. So through that Product Hunt launch, we did get really massive amounts of traffic that helped us kickstart. And ever since then, it mostly grew organically, to be honest.
So what year did you start? Like when did this happen? I actually remember when you guys were featured on Product Hunt. And I'll tell you the story on that. But when was the extension first launched, and when did that Like when did you go from that 1 to 1,000, and where's your user base now?
Right. So we did launch a couple of times on Product Hunt. The project itself started about 3 years ago, but it turned to be a full-scale project about 9 months ago. So up until 9 months ago, we used to invest like a couple of hours a week on that. It was more like a hobby than an actual business. But we saw, we couldn't ignore anymore the demand and all the love that we've been getting from our community. So we just decided we're going to take it seriously, and we're going to go full time on this. So this is like in terms of how old the product is. But it really changed over the years, and especially recently we've been experiencing massive problems of scale. So when we started the product and we planned it initially, it was around like 20 to 30 different content sources,
Okay.
which is a certain amount of content. And now we have 10 times more. So it comes with a lot of technical challenges, again, on how to surface the best content and how to not surface or not even give exposure to content that doesn't deserve it.
And how do you do that? How do you make sure that you're only surfacing quality content because you're looking at so many different source points?
Yeah, so the basic answer is just we don't judge it ourselves. We just expose the content to our community, and if they find something interesting and they start reading it more and more and more, and it starts trending, we figure out that that it might be good. Although again, looking at scale, it comes like with other problems, because the content can be it can just be a clickbait, for instance, which is the reason why in some cases people click a lot about a specific article. So it does come with this type of challenges. So the first I'd say the first layer for us was to filter content that is behind a paywall, for instance, starting with very, very basic stuff. And then the second layer was for us to give the community to vote, which upvotes get a pretty decent weight in terms of our algorithm. Okay. So when somebody upvotes, it's really an intentional action that they're taking and saying this thing is good. So we do weight that. And then we rolled out the upvotes, and then there is like abusing problems. People start creating fake users, and all those sorts of sort of stuff always happened in this kind of platform, community-driven platforms. So we're also trying to fight that, and then came another problem that we still have like too much content, so we cannot expose everything to everyone. We just have 24 hours a day. So how do we prioritize which content is going to be exposed or not? So we are thinking about different types of solutions for that problem. We still don't have the perfect solution, but we are trying to brainstorm and find different solutions around that. Most of the thinking in that sense is perhaps we can try to evaluate the content based on like outbound signals, like how much time it's been shared online or been given some kind of social accreditation somewhere.
Interesting.
Yeah, so there's a lot of things going behind the scenes here. It's a really full-time production on bringing in on a continuous basis the best content.
Yeah, I have so many questions, but I want to refer to the chat here because there's some good questions.
Sure.
So Chris asks, what upcoming features or tools are you planning in regards to reputation?
In regards to reputation, this is a very, very good question. We added a reputation system originally to bring in more community members to help us moderate the content. This is one of the main things that we're planning for it. But eventually, like the way we see reputation is also some kind of tool for our users to identify whether somebody is just trolling around or is it someone serious, like any reputation system out there. So right now, it's true that we don't offer a lot of features to people with high reputation, but we are thinking about different types of content enrichment. I can say that. So one of the ways that we really like, just to give you, kind of a hint, is we like personally, before reading an article, we like to get a too long didn't read, so that instead of going and I just see the content headline, and then I have to go into the article itself to read everything and to realize if it's good enough for me or not. So having a too long didn't read many times helped me navigate through massive amounts of content to choose what I actually want to read. So people with higher reputation would be able to indicate what is the, like, in a very similar fashion to Stack Overflow or GitHub discussions, you'd be able to show this is the right too long didn't read. You'd be able to moderate that. You'd be able to moderate different tags and different contents in daily.dev. But there are a bunch of other ideas, so I guess we're just gonna have to wait and see.
Interesting. Cool. Awesome. I'm going to go to the next question from Erica. Hi, Nimrod. Love the site. I've looked for similar services in the past and didn't have much luck, so I'm really excited to use this. Do you run ads? How does this app get revenue?
Sure. So yeah, the basic answer is yes. We run ads. Usually the first card in the feed is a promoted content. And the thing about it, 2 points that I want to mention about it. One, this is our main revenue channel, obviously, because the product is entirely free. You can, if you're using the extension, you can remove the ads, but it's a paid subscription. You can take off the ads if it's too much or if you don't like it. But I want to say 2 things about the ads. We're very meticulous about our advertisers. So you're not going to see here anything that is not relevant for developers. We only bring here different offers and different tools that are highly targeted specifically for software developers. And nothing here is personalized, right? So this is the second thing. The ads are being served on a backend basis. So there's no JavaScript snippets here tracking your behavior, your browsing extensions. We just display the ads in a random fashion. Nothing here is personalized, and the reason we are able to do that is just because our audience is so well narrowed down. We only have developers on our platform, so it's very easy to show just ads for developers. But yeah, basically this is our way to generate revenue.
That makes sense. That's interesting that you said that, because I was going to ask you, because Facebook looks at your demographics before it serves you the ads. And they face a lot of slack when it comes to the data that they share with their vendors and the different just advertisement that's done on their platform. So yeah, I think it's interesting that you have a niche audience so you don't need to store data. Awesome. So what is currently your user base? What is kind of what are the plans for the future?
All right, and that reminds me, where you asked me, where our audience is from. So right now we have about 80 to 85,000 people, and it's growing on a weekly basis. And most of the users are coming from the United States, India, and a bunch of European countries. Our biggest audience in Europe is in France, and then in the UK, and in Germany, and in Italy. But the majority of users is just widespread throughout many countries out there. Also from Brazil, we have a pretty big community of developers that are also very, very active. And we don't we want to serve as many communities as possible, so we don't definitely we don't prefer a specific community. We just want developers that want to learn, want to stay on top of the latest news, to be with us, to contribute. And this is again a good place to say that the project is 100% open source. So you just can go ahead on our GitHub, submit issues, submit feature requests, bring in ideas to the table, and we are taking it very, very seriously. However, one thing to keep in mind is that it's true that we are a team of 3 people, but only one out of these 3 people is a developer. So everything you see here has been built by Ido, which is my partner and the CTO of daily.dev. So, and he's also the open source maintainer for this project. So
Sleep.
so it's pretty epic, and we do have a lot of workload. Yeah, he's a brilliant guy and my best friend, and I'm so proud of him. So just please keep that in mind. He does reply pretty fast to everyone. He's really responsive, and whenever there's a feature that we can accept, so he will guide you through. I know that maybe some of the audience here is more in the beginner stage, so that's fine. We have some documentation, but whatever is not documented, he's going to personally help you and support you and would answer your question. So definitely, go ahead, check out the open issues, check out the feature requests, and contributing to open source is not only fun, it's really fulfilling and inspiring. And once you made your first contribution, even just to improve the README docs, whatever, it's so much, it's filling you with optimism and with happiness. That's it. So if you haven't ever contributed to open source, just go ahead and do it.
Awesome.
Even I, that I'm not a developer, I contributed to several open source projects, not in terms of code, but in terms of helping them document things, and there are many ways to help and contribute.
Absolutely. That's phenomenal. That I actually didn't know that you guys only have one developer on the team. I'm genuinely wondering when he sleeps.
He's a very disciplined guy, I can tell you that. Like, he has a very, very specific time management. He works out nearly every day. He has a certain hour that he goes to sleep. He really, keeps his physical and mental health, which is a big issue nowadays for not only for developers, for everyone. Like, our own personal and emotional well-being is so important, and it's such an important aspect of being good at everything. Is don't get to a burnout stage, don't overwork it, and it's sometimes it's just counterintuitive, might even be a stupid advice, but if you overwork and you overwhelm yourself, eventually you're going to be less productive, not more productive. So put aside all the coding and learning and the deep hardcore technical stuff. At the end of the day, you're a human being. You need to get rest. You need to do something you love. And the biggest, stress reliever is just to get a really good 30-second hug from a person you love, from your friend, from your spouse, whatever. It's just, it's a great reliever. It's going to make you much more productive and definitely much happier. So programming is important, but it's not the most important or everything in life. So it's better be said.
Yeah, no, that's good advice. I think, like, especially when you're starting out, it can get really overwhelming. Although we do advocate for hard work, and we do actually advocate for those longer hours, particularly in the case of when you're trying to break into this industry. Like, the learning curve is high. But yeah, no, you gotta know when the burnout does happen. But there's a balance, right? There's a balance of managing a business. And I wanted to ask a couple of questions, but I want to go to a question that Chris had. I love the idea of having all my dev bookmarks in one place. Can we add links not found via daily.dev to the daily.dev bookmark list?
So honestly, currently the answer is no, unfortunately. We did get that feature request quite a bunch of times, but we are considering to make an extension for daily.dev. It's extension for the extension, which is going to have a little bit more in-depth permissions. and it will enable you to augment different things from daily.dev on top of content that you see online. And one of the things is going to be the ability to bookmark things, or to recommend links to daily.dev, or different types of things. And it's going to be offered for everyone, but again, it's not mandatory. It's for people who, really both trust us. Trust is very important, in the digital age. And your questions on that aspect was great. If people won't be able to trust us, we have nothing to do here. We can just go home. Even though we work from home, but we can just go home and shut down the lights and do something else.
Go outside.
We might add this feature to our roadmap, but again, we just have one guy developing this thing. So if somebody wants to contribute that, it can be really interesting contribution.
Really cool. Nimrod, I wanted to ask you a question about, because a lot of developers in our community are also aspiring entrepreneurs. So I want to ask you the question about, that age-old question of like, when do you know that you found a co-founder, and how did you find, you mentioned that the CTO is a dear friend of yours. How did you two meet? Was this something, was this a friend that was in your circle? And what would your recommendations be in terms of finding somebody who's non-technical? Because most of the people in our community are developers. So what would you recommend to them? Like if they were looking to start their own businesses, who should your co-founder be? And
yeah, that's a very important question. And the way I see it is that this question sits as part of a bigger question, which is like, what is the most important thing that I need to care about when I start a new startup or a new business? Like, what's the first thing? What should be the spotlight? And definitely building the team is the most important aspect. If we're trying to categorize building a startup, this is my 9th year of building startups. Most of the years were full of failures, to be honest. Most of the projects weren't that glamorous and weren't that interesting. But if we can categorize the 5 elements of every startup, it's having an idea, it's having a business model, it's having a team, it's in many cases having some sort of funding or generating revenue by being a bootstrap, and finally the execution. And out of these 5 criteria, the team is the most important. And the reason I firmly believe in that is, even if we put aside the fact that Ido, Tzachi, and I have been all the startups so far we've been building together, even though many of them failed. The team is the one thing that it's very difficult to change and replace. And the team is going to be the one who will dictate whether your business idea is going to be successful, whether you're going to be able to pivot in the right time, the way you're going to execute. Everything's going to be determined by the team. So I really thank you for that question, because I really think it's important. And recently I participated in a Clubhouse room just about this question, like, how do you find your co-founder? And I've been hearing a lot of different opinions and ideas. And the main theme that I resembled with the most is actually a very unfortunate answer. And the best the best teams just meet organically. All right. So anything, try to think about your co-founder as your, it's a bit funny to say, but as your romantic partner. It rarely happens in a non-organic way. Navi can relate, yeah.
For those of you who are here don't know, the co-founder of Mintbean is my husband, and it is having, when you start a business, I think you're all in. It is definitely like having a baby, or having like raising a baby, and it's very difficult. And you have to be on the same page as your co-founder, and you're going to have a lot of disagreements. And if this person can't handle your opinions, or the disagreements that you bring to the table, it can really break that synergy, it can really break that team. So it's probably one of the most critical things about starting your own business, especially if you are looking for a co-founder. I've I've found like I do a lot of, I love like reading in the business world and kind of like seeing success stories and what some of the founders that have really done some groundbreaking work, the founders that they've really collaborated with successfully have been friendships that have been long friendships, because you're in it for the long run, and it gets challenging. Yeah, you're definitely in the bunker sometimes.
And the funny thing is, which is also a counterintuitive thing that I saw over the years, is the biggest challenges doesn't necessarily surface when there is a difficulty in the business. When things go south and it becomes, really tough, and you don't have enough revenue and don't have enough customers, whatever, the natural tendency of people is to get together and to try to solve that problem. If you're getting into blaming each other, that's definitely a big, not even red flag, it's a black flag, just run away for your life. But in many cases, when things don't go so well, people get together and try to solve it. And the interesting stuff really happens when things are getting well. Are you going to be able to manage your enthusiasm together and to let's say fuse your dreams together? Because probably every one of you is going to think about the future differently, and it's fine. You want to think about it differently. You want to have different opinions, but how do you incorporate those opinions into one strategy? And your ability to listen and to to genuinely listen, not just technically listen to what the other side said, what the other side say, but actually try and understand what's behind it, where are they coming from, what can you relate with. And once you're able to do that and your partner is able to do that, you can really be a very, very strong team. And if you're not able to listen to each other and to trust each other, so it's not going to work. And so my advice is, not only try to evaluate, things when it's not going well, but also when it is going well. Like, how did this person behave? Did they credit only themselves, or did they credit the other people in the team? Those kind of small indications are very important. But going back to the original question, the best teams usually just meet organically. They either study together, they work together in the same workplace, they've been friends for many years, they might have been in a romantic relationship before. It also happens more and more. I see it more and more. So usually those are the best cases. With that said, I did see very strong teams that just met in a meetup and they had this kind of click, and instantly they felt we should do something together. And usually when it happens, it's the right person, because you cannot stop talking to the other person. It's like falling in love with someone in a professional manner. So when this thing happened, I would also consider it as an organic thing. But just doing matching or speed meeting for co-founders, it's nice, but it usually doesn't end up in a very strong team.
Awesome response. So in terms of launching your own product, I know you said that you guys have been at this for 3 years, and then 9 months have been really more full time. If you were to kind of turn back the time, what would you kind of tell your past self? Like, what should a founder focus on when it comes to the first 3 months, the first 6 months, the next 9 months, the year?
That's a fantastic question. And I really feel that I'm not sure like why it happens, but all the talk and all the meeting is around romantic stuff. So I'm gonna keep on that specific line. And my advice would be very simple: fall in love with the problem that you're solving. Really go deep into understanding the problem that you're going to solve. And usually it happens when you solve your own problems, because you're the expert of your own problems, and it's so important. But just saying that it's easier said than done. So I do want to give you a very practical advice on how to evaluate whether the problem that you're solving is a good problem or not, to give some kind of framework. I didn't invent that. This is like common knowledge. There are like many places that teach entrepreneurship or that accelerate startup. They teach it, like Y Combinator, for instance. But I found a very useful framework is when you evaluate your problem is to ask yourself the following question. If you want to know if the problem that you're solving is good, so usually a good problem is a very popular problem. It's a problem where you go to your audience and you mention that problem to them, everybody immediately agrees. So one very good criteria to check is whether your problem is popular or not. The second thing is that usually good problems are very frequent problems. You know, it's things that happen on at least on a daily basis or on a weekly basis. Although, you know, in some cases there might be a huge problem that happens, you know, once a quarter or once a year. That's also fine. There have been massive companies being built around also this type of problems, but usually, you know, the more frequent problem is usually correlates with a better problem that you want to solve. Another criteria is that good problems are usually urgent problems. So it means that for the other side, the audience, they have to solve it now because it's really painful. It's really something they cannot bear. Another criteria would be that a good problem is a problem that's expensive. And when I say expensive, it's not only in terms of money, it also can be in terms of time. Time is money, obviously, and there's this saying, but you want to go and find a problem that really touches a really, you know, expensive aspect of someone's life. So if it's something that, you know, it's really ineffective, inefficient, you want to go there. It's usually a sign for a good problem. And there are a lot of other criteria, but I'm going to finish up with this last criteria that usually good problems are also mandatory. And by mandatory, I usually mean, you know, to a certain rule or code that you have to comply with. It can be regulation, it can be a certain terms of service, whatever. So whenever there's like a new regulation coming up, let's say GDPR in Europe, you know, those privacy regulations. So suddenly all the businesses that operate in Europe have to comply with that. So it did create a very fertile ground for a lot of new companies and businesses to help other businesses comply with GDPR. So these 5 criteria, you know, having a popular problem, frequent problem, urgent, expensive, and mandatory is a very good sign. Having all 5 is nearly impossible, but at least having 2 or 3 of them with a very solid case that you can at least convince yourself, but you know, you should be able to convince other smart people with that. It's a very good start.
Nice. That's awesome. I love that framework. That's a really interesting way of putting it. I feel like I'm asking all the questions. I want to pause for a second and ask everyone on the call if there's, you know, if you want to unmute yourself and ask Nimrod a question, please feel free to do that. Or just drop a question in the chat as well. I think we're at the 10-minute mark. So yeah, please feel free to jump in.
Until someone jumps in, I'm going to tell you a cool thing that we're doing, all right, just so we don't have an awkward silence. So one of the things we decided to do this year is to invest more in our community. So there's a lot of engineering stuff going on in daily.dev and improving the product and improving the user experience and the content and everything that we've been talking about. But there's also some part of us that is just about, you know, going back and contributing to the community. And one of the things that we decided to do this year is some kind of monthly event. I hope it's fine that I'm sharing it here, Navi. But it's an event series we call the Monthly Dev. You can Google that. It's some kind of, it's a TED-like events where we try to bring world-class speakers to present inspiring idea for developers online. It's usually 1.5 hour event. It happens once a month. And each speaker, usually we bring between 2 to 3 speakers. Each one has 30 minutes, and we do have live Q&A. So, you know, it's a great chance not only to listen to amazing talks, but also to be able to ask questions to those amazing speakers. So for instance, in our next event, which happens on March 23, next week, we're going to have Kent C. Dodds, which is probably one of the most amazing teachers for programming online out there. He's going to be there giving a talk about about testing in React. So some of the content might be, advanced. Some of it might be for more beginner stage, but I do recommend everyone to join at least for one time to see how it is, because it's a really good way to catch up with what's going on out there. What's the cutting edge topics that that people care about.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's actually funny that you mentioned that. That's exactly what we try to do in our community as well. We try to bring in experts from the field and really talk about some of these things. And yeah, we love promoting other communities that are doing the same. Um, I guess, oh, we have a question. Where can we find the link to that event? I'll drop that in the current event channel, TJ, at after the session. So I'll grab all the useful links. I guess Nimrod, I wanted to ask you if you guys are currently still like, has this in the last 3 years, is this still bootstrapped or are you guys funded? Has there been any seed funding that has been done?
So yeah, the project is fully bootstrapped, and we actually did get a few offers from investors and term sheets for investment, and we turned it down simply because we've experienced working with investors for many years, and it's nice and it's exciting, but there's something about doing things in a bootstrap way that just helps us optimize for happiness. Not having anyone to be, to telling us what they think we should do or not, and having the ability to just listen to our people, listen to our community and their needs and being empathic, and not only care about the hard numbers and how much revenue did you create and what's your growth in revenue. All those sorts of really dry metrics really makes us happier. So for now, we're bootstrapped. I don't know, like we might fundraise in later in the future, but at the moment we enjoy it. So that's our best way to go.
I love that. Okay, on that note, I think I'm out of questions. I probably can keep like asking you more questions, but this is gonna get a little selfish because I just want to know more about like the business side of things. This stuff fascinates me. So maybe I'll save it for a personal call. I really enjoyed this conversation and I'm sure everyone else did. Oh, Erica has a question. Would the dev from the team ever do a Q&A?
Q&A as quality assurance or questions and answers?
I guess an AMA, maybe that's
an AMA.
Yeah. If we come up with questions later, how can we reach your team?
So, all right, that's a great question. So first of all, Lido is very available online, especially on Twitter. So you can just DM him, or if you have a specific question, or you can just tweet. He'd be glad to reply. The best way to stay in touch with us is through our GitHub. We have also GitHub discussions, which is some kind of forum within our GitHub that you can, open up topics and ask anything. That's a great way, or just via Twitter, just Twitter daily.dev. Sorry, like the handle daily.dev, the way it sounds. So you can just pop questions, and I'll definitely, I'll suggest, perhaps you want to do a more technical Q&A sometimes in the near future. And Navi, if you want to host them, that's also fine. I can easily connect you. If your community is interested to speak with him, he'd be glad to appear here as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love that. Whoop whoop. Yeah. So yeah, most definitely. Cool. Awesome. Well, I had a fantastic time. I'm sure everyone else did. If no one else had any more questions, I think I'm tapped out. Yeah. So thank you so much, Nimrod. I really enjoyed this conversation. Truly appreciated you spending Wednesday afternoon with us.
Me too, guys. Thanks.
I wish you all the best on the future of daily.dev, and I'm really looking forward to what you guys do next. And yeah, I'll reach out to you and we'll plan another AMA with your CTO.
Cool. All right, great. Have a great day, great evening, everyone, depending where you're coming from.
Yeah. Take care. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.